and being transparent, and everything we do here at MDX is consistent with our policies again and our responsibilities to be a public and transparent agency. And I think today is what we're here to do, to seek public input, to have conversations, and to listen to anybody who has any comments regarding our budget and preparing. So with that, let me, I guess, start with a Pledge of Allegiance before we get to the business. Okay. Yes, we do a Pledge of Allegiance? Yes. Well, I'm just reading what the agenda says. Oh, we're going to do a Pledge of Allegiance anyway, so everybody's up.
Let's start.
Pledge allegiance to the God, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you all for pledging of allegiance. She just said, then I have it here.
Well done.
Oh. All right. Right. So before we get started, I just want to set the parameters for what we're here today to do, and that is to present to you a budget. This budget is fiscally responsible and sustainable, as it has been probably since inception of this organization, but we strive very hard to do that. It provides various services that our toll payers have come to expect, and I think the quality of that they come to expect, not just the reputation that we've established as a very thorough and, again, transparent. And you'll hear me saying and emphasizing the word transparent, because I think that's one of the greater qualities that this organization has. We're small, we're lean, and we're very transparent. And as you know, everybody can get information off the web. You can call any of our staff, our executive director, very accessible folks. So I encourage you to, and most of you are in this audience today are people that are here on a regular basis, but for those of you that are not, I encourage you, should you ever have any questions, we have a very transparent organization and a very accessible staff. What this budget will focus on is several areas, again, as we come to expect. Services such as a road ranger, services that those are more the visible things that you see out there as a consumer, as you're driving through our system. We strive to make sure that we have 24 hours a day service. We have part of that service expands to obviously maintaining safe roadways. Getting those vehicles out of the way is important to us. So again, that's some of the more visible aspects of what we do. The aesthetics, maintaining the highways. I think there's a discernible difference when you transfer from one highway to the other throughout the state of Florida. Not to pick on any one agency, but I think we strive to maintain and work hard at maintaining that. There's a lot of other aspects that you don't necessarily see, and that is a behind-the-scenes aspect, such as support technologies, a lot of software and infrastructure that you don't see here, and a lot of other items that we're going to hear about today. So I encourage you to listen attentively. We do strive to incorporate the community, so a lot of our efforts do include a minority participation, a local business participation, and that, again, is something that we feel is very relevant to this organization, to this community. And we do all of that with the understanding that we have a fiduciary responsibility to our bondholders, to the people that really are holding us accountable. And there's a lot of requirements that you'll hear some things today. What are those requirements are? Our trustees and our policies are requiring that we subscribe to a very defined process. So with that said, there's several factors here. I do encourage participation, not just from our board members. I'd love to hear opinions and thoughts, but again, from the audience, I think we would like your participation. So make sure that I have the right presentation here. Okay. All right. With that said, let me turn it over to Marie. Most of you know Marie, and obviously the professional staff. She's an example of what we strive again in professionalism. I think we all have tremendous respect. So, Marie, you're the professional that has most knowledge about our budget. If you please go through the budget for us.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Before I start, I just want to thank the entire MDX organization. Even though it's sort of perceived as a financial document, all the departments worked on it, from toll operations, Steve's group, Juan's group, Mario, our procurement folks. So everybody was involved in putting the budget together. So I do want to thank everybody for that. And I do want to especially thank my staff. Jason Green's our budget manager, and Christina is my accounting manager, and they worked very hard in helping us put the presentation together. So I do want to recognize them for their hard work on that. We do have a presentation that is quite lengthy, and we're not going to go through each of the slides unless somebody wants to stop me, but some of these slides are very quick. But I did incorporate into the presentation some additional information just to clarify some of the misnomers out there, that MDX has quite a bit of oversight and reporting requirements. We do have an annual audit. It's done by an independent CPA firm. We file with the Security Exchange Commission. We file with the State of Florida Auditor General. We do file with the Florida Transportation Commission. And then we have rating surveillance that we do on an annual basis. So there's quite a bit of reporting. We report to the trustee on a quarterly basis. We have reporting for the state because we have outstanding state loans. And we also respond to investor questions. They call us and they want to clarify information that's on the website. We do talk to investors. And then we also produce what's called the Popular Annual Financial Report, and that's something that we do volunteer. And it's really a citizen's report that's written in very plain language on what MDX does, where do we spend our money, and how much we collect and so forth. So we're very transparent on that. I'm not going to go through the compliance, but obviously we have trust indenture compliance. We have a board policy that we have to follow. We have coverage ratios to the trust indenture that we need to meet. I just want to, there's a couple of slides on the accomplishments, and I think the slides that the accomplishments that I want to bring out goes back to some of the commitments that we've made to the community. In fiscal year 15, we have let or completed contracts, signing contracts of $450 million worth of services and construction. That's very significant for an organization our size. And we paid over $60 million to small local business. So I think that's a very big achievement that we accomplished in fiscal 15. Some of the completed projects, we basically said that the money was going to go to pay specific projects. And as you can see from the slide, a lot of the projects have either completed design or moved forward to the build contract that we executed. Contracts 874, 83628 has been signed. It's out in the street. 83625 was an emergency ramp that was requested by the city of Sweetwater. So again, it shows really good partnership with other cities and municipalities around the county. The budget, obviously the budget is really a financial tool. It forecasts revenue, and it forecasts the expenses, and it basically provides specific needs and services. MDX's fiscal year starts July 1 and ends on June 30th. So the budget we're talking about this year is fiscal 16. So next year's fiscal will end June 30th of 2016. The budget objectives, the point of having a budget is to show transparency, accountability, to provide for services that we basically have told the toll payers that they're going to receive. It also ensures compliance with policies, state statutes, and all our contractual obligations, whether there's state loans outstanding or whether they're trust indenture, and also establishes a spending authorization. So the board knows that we're spending the money that they've authorized. So this is an authorization from the governing board. It also establishes benchmarks. Are we meeting specific goals? And those goals are not just financial, they could be non-financial. Are we providing the service as we were required? That we have the roadway services out there 24/7. Some of the commitments that we've made, and we've talked about these commitments time and time again, and it goes back to March of 2013. We told our users that we would provide a safe expressway system that would be preserved and make sure that their experience of driving on the roadway would be pleasant, would be clean. We basically promised them a customer rewards program. That is incorporated into this budget. We also promised specific projects that would move forward. All of these projects on this list have moved forward. They're either executed or in procurement near completion. We've made commitments to our bondholders that we would deliver a certain coverage ratio and that we would maintain the system at a certain level. Again, all these commitments have will or soon be achieved. The budget components that we're going to talk about today is the operating expense, the debt repayment, and non-project capital. These are capital projects that are not in the work program, such as headquarter, infrastructure network, and then the funding requirements, and then our revenues. Those are the components of the budget. So the total budget for this fiscal year is $152 million. The majority of it goes back to pay for the capital programs, repayment of our debt. Again, we borrowed debt for the specific purpose of building projects, of building infrastructure. We've never issued debt to fund operation and maintenance. Our operating expenses are $58 million. Our non-project capital is about $1.5 million. 84% of the 152 has either committed or they're under contracts that have set rates. We have a DOT contract on our SunPass pass-through charges that we have a legal agreement on the agreed-upon rates. And then we have the trust indenture requirements on repaying the debt. Again, our expenditures, to break it down a little bit more in detail, we're going to talk about that. Total operations is $34 million. It went up 5.2. Steve's going to discuss that. Rodeo operations is 4.8. It went up a little bit less than $100,000. Juan's going to speak to that. And maintenance is 7.4. Went up about $630,000. Again, Juan will speak to that. And then administration went up $320. It's 11.6. We have a contingency, and then the debt repayments and non-project capital to make up the $152.4 million. So the operating expenses is $58.6 million. Went up $5.2 million from fiscal year's 15's budget. You have operations, $39 million for fiscal 16. You have maintenance, 7.4. You have administration, that's 11.7. You have the contingency, that's 650. And then when you look at the entire budget of the 5.2, 3.3 relates to the SunPass pass-through charges, which is a legal agreement that we agreed to back in 2013. So the actual adjustment, direct cost, went up about $2 million overall expenses. I want to take a step back here and take a look at the little box that's on the right-hand side. Fixed direct cost is $25 million. These are either lump sum contracts or set rate amounts that we've already procured and executed agreements for. And then we have the SunPass charges, which is $17.3 million. Again, that's through the agreement that we agreed to. So the variable portion of the entire budget is about $16 million. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to talk about toll operations.
While Steve is getting up here, I want to make for the record that we have Mr. Javier Vasquez, one of our board members, on the phone.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members. The toll operations budget is broken down into two costs, direct and indirect. As we go through, and I'll point out all the details for each one of these line items, I'm pleased to present this budget. It's very efficient and provides a effective service to our paying customers. The FY16 proposed direct cost budget is $17.5 million, which, as Marie pointed out, is an increase of $1.97 million. The three largest of these net increases are categorized into three areas: toll IT system support and operations, in-lane software and hardware maintenance, and image review software expenses. The largest net decrease was in toll operations and staffing. This green outline of the first two line items have several subcategories and will be detailed on the next slide. So let's talk about the remainders. For in-lane software and hardware maintenance, in FY16, we're going to realize a full year of maintenance on our system. In 15, maintenance expenses began in mid-August for our ETC lanes on 924, 874, and 878, and only a month of expenses on our TransCore lanes for 836 and 112. So that's truly the reason for the increase to $1.7 million, is because in 15 we only had several months and we'll realize a full year. Similarly, for our image review system, we only had 2 months of maintenance or services of the software for 15, and this $450,000 represents a full year of software expenses for that contract.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Steve, I think for the new members, it might be important that you explain why we only had 2 months.
The contract called for the integrator to provide us with final acceptance. Once final acceptance was awarded to the contractor, that's when the maintenance or the software services began. That didn't come into effect until the last 2 months of the year. So that's why there's only, $65,000 for FY15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And as you can see, there's a slight increase for what we expect for postage and printing, and then the remainder are all decreases.
Let me say that real quick. If anybody has any questions, please feel free during the presentation, board members, to ask questions that may arise. That we're here to make sure that you get the clarification you need, any questions, and your answers. Anybody has any questions?
What does customer care group mean? What's that?
Oh, okay. For this slide, this is the group of individuals that are handling our special case exception processing for customers. We have people who have SunPass. They need exception processing. They're a group of 12 individuals at our 924 facility, and what they're there for is to improve the customer service environment of MDX.
So this is being paid on staffing?
That's correct.
So it's staffing. So then, okay, also explain why the billing service is so high. Why is that so high? That's people?
That's correct. Billing is both the mailing out of documents as well as people handling in the customer service side.
Madam Chair, numbers.
Madam Chair, just for perspective, the billing service is for all the toll by plate. If you look at how many transactions we're having now annually, I think it's 452 million transactions annually with a closed system. 15% of that, roughly 15%, is toll by plate. This
Did you say
15? 15.
Wow.
15.
Okay.
15% of it is toll by plate, which in essence is a billing system. You're extending credit, you're sending out an accounts receivable. That's what this amount is for. The pass-through, which I know Steve will get to in the next slide, for SunPass are the prepaid accounts. And what SunPass does is they manage the SunPass account. This here deals with the toll by plate.
Okay. I just think that these are very high figures.
Can I follow up on that question?
And I was going to offer an idea.
Okay.
We need to revisit
Well, so why don't you
how
finish
we
your
can
thought,
go.
Mr. Frey?
We can go back and see how this can be changed, modify, look at other ways of getting these costs in a more manageable. I mean, $7.6 million to go out and collect is huge dollars. And what are we chasing and where are we going? What are we collecting? And if 15% is toll by plate, I really think that we need to focus on this because the system essentially has not grown, but the collections has grown. Okay? I mean, we didn't really add more miles. What we added is more collection points. So now there's more transaction. So I think that we need to go back and focus on that because this item is starting to be sort of like a runaway train if we don't start to relook at new ways, other ways of perhaps doing something with it differently. I'm just saying we need to look at it now before it gets bigger because it's always going to grow. There's always going to be more cars on that roadway, and there's always going to be more transactions. So before it just runs away from our hands, that we take a closer look on perhaps some other innovative ways of collecting.
Mr. Frey?
Yeah. I just want to expand on what the chair was talking about. You said that we had 452 million transactions annually. Now, how many did we have the year before? More or less. 350.
Right.
So we had 100 million more transactions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, in a budget of 152, if 15% is what we're collecting by plate, that's about $22 million.
Correct.
So if we're spending 7.6 on those $22 million, we in effect, it's costing a third of what we collect to collect that. Is that so? Do I have these figures right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're spending a third to collect the two-thirds that is due on this plate system. I'd like to know when we come back and review this, what the experience is of other agencies that have the same technology and are doing the same thing. Because my guess is that this is a national problem and that we're not any different than the toll systems in Pennsylvania or California or Oklahoma. And I'd like to get that information. Maybe we're better because I see you smiling, so that's telling me that you're going to tell me that we're doing better. And I think it's important that this board know that. Steve.
Steve, we had to respond.
Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, yes, I am smiling because I'm proud to say that MDX is either the best or one of the best. We sit at the top when it comes to cost per transaction and the amount that we spend on operations to take care of our 15 to 20% of our transactions that are toll by plate.
Now you said 20%.
Between 15 and 20. There's a number in there.
Yeah, but the difference is about $5 million, so it's not peanuts.
See, and I think this is where we need to explain, Mr. Vice Chair. The reason it's between 15 and 20% is because you're a SunPass customer, and if your tag doesn't read, it automatically assumes that you are a toll-by-plate customer. So there are times that you're sending out images, that you're sending out bills, and then the customer calls and says, hey, but wait a minute, I was a SunPass customer, and for some reason...
Is that a failure of the system?
Well, many of the times it's that the account isn't kept up to date.
The account is not kept...
Correct.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
With that said, the goal here, and Steve's going to expand that on more, the goal is, and what we've seen and what we can expect, is if we can reach a 90% SunPass penetration... I think that's the best you're going to do. 90. You're always going to have about 10% that are going to be told by plate,
really?
that are infrequent.
So what you're saying is we're 15 to 20%, but you hope that will increase up to 10% more and go up to 90, and it would decrease. So in other words, that 90% is the maximum that we can practically aspire to achieve. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
is
sir.
Anybody at 90% in the country?
No, sir. Other than the SR91 in California. That's the oldest all-electronic roadway. It's actually a managed lane.
Well, that's the reason why, and that's been there for 10 years.
Right.
About 20, yes.
See, the difference, Mr. Vice Chair, is that because we're a 24-hour, 24/7 tollway, in the peak periods we're getting close to 90% of SunPass usage. But when you average the 24 hours, you get a lot of infrequent users that are using it at different times, so your averages go down.
All right, thank you.
I have one second. Ms. Weinberg.
I had a question that actually kind of just got answered. I, too, have had issues, like you mentioned, but part of them have not been because of my account not being up to date. Part has been because of that image capturing. So I sort of have a twofold question. Do I not get a discount as a SunPass holder on some of our toll roads? And I am now then missing that when I'm read as a toll by plate instead. It's not a negative point. I'm trying to make a good question here because back to the math of the third, and I'm with you, Maurice, 100%. I mean, but if that's what it is across the board, it is what it is. But I almost feel like there's some kind of savings there in spending the collection regardless. I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, Steve.
I understand.
We've had a few conversations about this because I've had very many instances where my tag just isn't read and I'm piled up, $50. I'm like, what's going on? I'm on auto debit on my SunPass account. I should never ever get a bill from MDX, but it happens. So I'm just trying to do the math as to what is really costing if this dirt is real, because Maritza, you bring up a very valid concern, but if it's really, you have to spend money to make money, are we okay on the math on our own and I compare it across the board?
On the whole, we are. Several years ago, the board made a decision to charge and it's not that you get a discount for SunPass, that's the base rate. You pay a surcharge for toll by plate.
Exactly.
The fact that it's double the amount, that's where we make up the difference.
Okay.
But to get to your point, truly what we're doing here is customer service. We're providing a service to our customers whose accounts are not maintained, and we offer them leniency. We offer them the one-time courtesy of, if you made a mistake, you forgot to update your credit card, it expired, you just happen to go negative or overdrawn on your credit card. Things happen. You get a new vehicle, you get a new license plate, you don't add it. You forget to put your transponder in the vehicle, you go down the road, we take the picture. They end up saying, well, we don't know who this is, they being SunPass, because before we mail anything out, we send it to SunPass. SunPass gives us a rejection code. They tell us if there's an issue with the account. They tell us if the plate wasn't found. They tell us if it's a non-revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So at that point, then, we issue an invoice. The customer receives the invoice. A lot of times they don't do anything. They wait several months. They get several invoices. And then they finally call and say, hey, why am I getting these things? I got a SunPass account. Well, yes, you do, but you have an expired credit card.
Right.
Those kind of things happen. So we offer a one-time courtesy, and that goes into the system. If it happens again, they pay the full fare. But this is customer service. When you look at the value of the budget, the $7.6 million from last year, and just $418 more is what we're asking for this current year.
It's amazing.
Even though we're increasing our transactions, it's because our expectations are we're getting more efficient.
It's really amazing, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think rather than fret, what I see is an amazing accomplishment. If you can, with 100 million more transactions, have the same cost, and this is the top of what's happening in the nation, then I think kudos. Now, I do have a comment. Like everybody else, I get hacked, and so my credit card, I have a MasterCharge City American Express card, and they're hacking it all the time. I guess it may be at the gas station. These people go and they hack, and so I've had my card hacked 2 or 3 times in the last year. Now, the Wall Street Journal sent me a little note and said, your account has changed. Please update your credit card. So that means that knowledge, in other words, that technology is available if the Wall Street Journal has it and others have it, because I got another one that said the same thing. Steve, would you look into what that technology is so that when somebody's card, SunPass has my card, and every time my account goes down, another $25 or $50 or whatever it is gets put into the account and charged to but when my card is not valid, then that doesn't happen, and then it backs up, and then I get these bills, and then, we get into a spin. What I'm asking you to check out, not you, but SunPass, is to see if that technology that the Wall Street Journal has, it says your account number that's registered with us to pay for the Wall Street Journal every quarter has been changed. Please give us your new credit card, and I think that would simplify the process for people like me.
I want to make a point. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I would ask you to be specific in your questions. I know you were waiting to say something, Madam Chair, and then Mr. Myers.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a threefold question. First, this uncollectible receivable in process. This uncollectible receivable in process. This is not in the books until it's finally collected, right? from the toll by plate?
I apologize. We will have a receivable. It is on the financial statements. It's on our balance sheet. And there's an allowance for doubtful accounts to what portion we believe will take us time to collect. So we are carrying receivable on the books.
Okay.
So from a cash position, when you later on in the presentation, when you see the revenue, that is not cash basis. That is total as far as what transactions are being processed, but that's not necessarily what we actually collect.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The other two questions. This rule that the first one, when they call you, it's waive. This particular rule of waiving, this applies to everybody, no different of who they are?
No,
No
Madam
special treatment to anyone just because of their position or anything?
It has nothing to do with who that person or individual is. If you are a SunPass customer, you get a one get out of jail free card.
Of one, okay, like the Monopoly game.
That's it.
One time, not two times, not three times.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then the last question. Will there be some savings realized with this so-called back office consolidation? Is that where the savings is going to be?
Great question. And actually, I was going to get there to kind of go back one step to answer this question. When MDX made a decision that we terminated our previous back office supplier, we went into an emergency procurement. Very fortunate for MDX. We found a provider to do a billing system at an efficient level. The costs that you see up there are really transaction-based. When we were with our previous vendor, the cost was very similar to this, but the transactions were half. So as we progressed over the years in 15, 16, and as we move into 17, even though the transactions are going up, we're finding better ways with this vendor to be more efficient. We're fleet services, so instead of sending out 1,000 bills because you have 1,000 vehicles, I send you one bill. So it only costs me once. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to send you a bill. I'm going to deal in electronic format, and I'm going to email you an email that says go pay your bill. So these are the things that we're doing from MDX's point of view to become more efficient. All of these factors are part of the CCSS, which is a consolidated back office for the state of Florida. Unfortunately for us, we were expecting this to be done next year. We look probably 2 years in the future, maybe 3, before this is going to get done.
Wow.
And that's simply because of a protest. That's simply because
there's
of
a protest?
That was simply
Yeah.
because of a protest and a delay in the procurement.
So toll operations you said, listen, we're not going to wait for tomorrow. We're going to deal with this today to ensure that we keep reducing our costs and become more efficient, even though we're up in our transactions. MDX belongs to a group called All Electronic Back Office. We're a team of all of the states that have gone to all electronic. And what we're doing is we're comparing our notes, best practices. How do I compare to you? Our next meeting is actually in 2 weeks in Denver. MDX so far in the past year, in all of our information we provided, have shown that we have the lowest cost, we're the most efficient, so everyone's looking at MDX and trying to see what is it that you're doing differently. Our demographics are very similar to us and maybe Dallas or something like that. Why are my costs much higher?
Yeah. Why is Dallas's cost much higher?
Why Dallas's costs are much higher?
Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Follow-up
I'm
question?
done.
Okay. Mr. Meyer?
Quick question and comment. The goal is to get to 90%, correct?
Yes.
What percentage are we at today?
85.
85, so 5%. I'd be interested to understand what the strategy is moving forward in 16, 17, the 3-year time frame, 5-year time frame, what the strategy is to get to that 90%, because that number will fluctuate, and through the technology committee and in advances in technology and different tolling options using cell phones, et cetera, I think we'll see that number fluctuate and potentially come down over the years. But what's the strategy to get to that 90%? I'd be interested to hear about that strategy, because I can tell you, and this is the comment portion, When you purchase a new car, it typically takes, now with the fancy sun passes that you stick on the car, typically you'll lose that sun pass. So for an average customer, you buy a new car every couple of years or lease a new car. It takes you some time to get that new sun pass up. So that could be a month, 2 months that you're tolling by plate, and that would negatively affect that number. So I'd be interested to hear what innovative strategies we have to get that number to 90%. Thank you.
Board Member Meyer, stay tuned. When we get to the communications portion of it, you'll hear the strategy.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. I'm sorry. Image review, it goes from $1,740,000 to $2,004,000. What is image review?
These are all of the toll-by-plate images that are captured in the lane that require a system or a human to review.
I see. So in other words, but why is it going up $650,000? Because
we had a 46%, or we project a 46% increase in the number of images.
Got it.
From one year to the next. We're going from 96 million to 140 million images.
Yep. I had asked the same question, Mr. Ferry, privately in our briefing, and it's a volume. It's volume. And so we're anticipating more people physically having to review those. That's what we're projecting. Okay, continue. Steve.
Okay, that pretty much hits the first part, or the first section of toll operations and staffing. The second part is dealing with IT system support and operational support. And we're proposing a net increase in budget of $226,000. Based on the line items there, as you can see, the first one, MOT, which is maintenance of traffic, that's being reduced completely because that's going on to the maintenance side, which is the increase of the 1.7 that we discussed earlier. All that's included. We see a decrease both in telephone and Metro Ethernet backup for this year. We see an increase in hardware and software support. This is due to the numbers of servers that we've added to our system, so we're having to add this increased cost to handle that for FY16. In the IT support services for toll operations, this is a new budget item for FY16. This is broken down into two areas. The first area will provide a full audit and evaluation of our disaster recovery of our tolling system. We've yet to do this, and this has been one of the discussions of our auditors with our IT staff, is how well or robust is your disaster recovery. So in this next fiscal year, Ivan has planned to bring in an auditor to do an audit of the back office system to see what the pros and cons, what the issues may be for our system for disaster recovery. It's a budgeted item. We budgeted $50,000 in this line item. We don't know. This will go through a procurement. The second one is to bring in a specialized IT consultation and professional services for our complete ITS infrastructure. And again, this is a budgeted item. We're asking for money to put in the budget, but it will go through a procurement and will be competitively bid. The final item is a net increase of $60,000 for toll equipment parts. Although this complete line item would go into the new 1.7, what we're asking for is really the $300,000 for this year. This is a special request. What we're wanting to do is to procure new cameras for our legacy system, which is the 924, 874, and 878 system that's been out there going on 6 years. We expect a return on this investment within 1 year. And during the review with our treasurer, that's what he brought to me. And he said, well, what is your return on this investment? How well do you think you're going to, or how much better are you going to get? So we took a conservative approach and we looked at it. We said, if we can reduce the number of images that we can't see, we can't look and identify by 1%, we'll get that return on investment in 1 year. We're expecting to do better, but at the minimum, we're expecting to pay for this in 1 year.
All right. Madam Chair?
I have sort of a dumb question. How does if you're increasing customer service and you're increasing more people manning, staffing, viewing, how can the telephone lines decrease? Don't you need more lines to be able to address the volume? I'm trying to figure this out. Why does the telephone item go down instead of going up?
It's the efficiency of what we're doing. When you look at the increase in transactions, doesn't necessarily correlate to an increase in customers. If I reduce, and like I said, if I take the fleet services, we identified over 500 accounts that would bundle about 20% of those transactions. And we're saying if we took all those and made them into a electronic communication format, we're going to reduce our call volume tremendously. So we're planning these efficiencies for next year, and we're saying we can get by with what we budgeted the same amount last year. We think we're going to meet that number. So our expectation is through efficiency, we're going to spend the same amount, even though we're increasing the number of transactions.
I'm not going to wait as long on the phone. I'm not going to get a busy call. And I'm not going to hang on for 15 minutes.
That's correct. And actually, the improvements are being noticed now, today.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, any more from your report?
Yes. The other one, which was the SunPass side that Marie had alluded to, these are their indirect costs. These are direct pass-throughs from Florida Department of Transportation, and it is an increase of $3.3 million. 2.7 of which is a SunPass processing charge and just over $600,000 in SunPass transponder subsidies. So what's the breakdown? Why? What's the reasoning for this? We pay per transaction to SunPass a set amount. It's a tiered approach, so the first X million is 5 cents, the next X million is 4 cents, and it keeps going down as we bring in more transactions. So that's why it's not a direct one-to-one correlation of, even though we're increasing from 300 and something to 400 and something million transactions, it's not the same. We're going to increase less than the number of transactions that we're going to be processing, and that's due to the tiered approach. Like I said, we expect 27% increase in forecasted SunPass transactions. A lot of that is because we didn't realize a full year of the new ORT until November. That's when we actually turned on the system. So we're expecting a full year in FY16. The other aspect is the SunPass transponder subsidy. This is what we subsidize the SunPass to the customer that pays us the $4.99. It's based on what percentage of MDX is of the whole, and that's how this was calculated and agreed to.
And we're only 4 point what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. You said how much of the total is MDX?
Of the $4.99 that the consumer pays.
Yeah.
We subsidize that. And I don't know what that value is. It's somewhere in the $3 to $4 range is what that subsidy is on that transponder.
Okay, thank you.
It costs the state more.
In order to give it away,
We're
subsidizing the state, Madam Chair.
Yeah. I got a question for you. Since now we're going to be partners with the state on the back office, was there any negotiation on any additional savings that on the SunPass? Did that tier get a little better? Because now, we're all united in collecting, and we're all buddies, and it's all great. Did we get some savings realized? Did we ask?
Those savings.
If we didn't ask, we should go back and ask.
Madam Chair, actually, it's an interesting question you asked, because when we negotiated back in 2013, I think it was, when we did the tiered approach, we met with the Secretary Prasad and Director Scassetti at the time. We came up with the tiered approach that would bridge us to the consolidated back office, assuming the consolidated back office was coming online in 2016. Because of the delay, now we have to go back and either extend that agreement until the new back office comes in, or and potentially renegotiate. Your direct answer is that when the consolidated back office comes in, the formulas for what the transactional costs are going to be throughout all of the agencies will show efficiencies on a per transaction basis.
So
there will be savings in the consolidated back office.
Rest assured, anytime we negotiate, we're always looking to reduce our costs. So we will do that to the best of our ability. And like Marie did this the last time, she truly brought in the numbers for us. The other aspect is, the other piece is that subsidy. One of the things or pokers in the fire, or whatever you want to call it, is the transition to a interoperable transponder that's nationwide. Depending upon what comes out of that, it's possible, quite possible, that we're going to get a transponder that's going to cost anywhere to the manufacturer's cost is about $1. So if we package it for $3, we can pretty much give those away and reduce this $600,000 completely. So that's the other side of what we're looking into, and kind of goes to what you were saying, board member, of what are our next steps to be able to increase to get to that 90%. If every vehicle in the state of Florida had a transponder on it, one image or view would be almost nil, because I wouldn't need to image or view. I could just read the transponder. And two, I'd have all that information.
Okay. Steve, anything?
I got a comment for that. Anybody buying a new car, trading in a new car, the key is to reduce the collection of the future tax, and that's the way.
All right. Is Mr. Toledo? Thank you, Steve. You're done with your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board members, any questions? Okay. Okay. Mr. Walters?
The growth in transactions are over 100 million. That's somewhere in the ballpark of 275,000 a day. That's not additional vehicles on the road. You're just having more transactions because of what?
We're capturing them.
Of the capture points.
That's what I figured. But what is the real growth then as far as traffic?
I don't have that exact number. It's somewhere between 3% and 5%.
5%.
Okay. All right. Mr. Toledo?
Good morning, board members.
Excuse me for a moment. Board members, I think this is a very important, what Cliff has just asked is really a very, very critical point. That 200 and whatever it is, thousand, are people that were not paying before that are now paying. Okay? And that's why we're getting so many angry people, because they've been used to not paying, and now they have. It's not only the increase, but the fact that we have over 200 million transactions that before were not paid, and now they have to be paid because everybody has to pay their fair share, and so that's really part of this angst that has occurred, which in my opinion, is beginning to die down.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pena. I want to present our engineering, our operations and maintenance budget. On the operations side, it's made up of the traffic management center expenses, our service patrols, utilities, permit compliance, ITS, and our state insurance requirements. The biggest increases there are with the NPDS, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit that we do every year, and also the ITS expenses. Overall, the operations budget increase was $91,000 from last year, from 4.72 to 4.81. Again, what goes into that are our direct costs with our contracts with Road Ranger services, utility expenses, the compliance with the NPDS. That's where we had a significant increase this year, and that's partially due to enhanced requirements on the permit, also some agreement deferrals that we were able to work out a couple of years ago due to where we were in our budget cycle. We planned it so that we would be in full ORT when we had to incur these additional costs. And then with the enhanced requirements is the labor and coordination that goes into providing all the information needed to get the permits in. With the ITS increase of $69,000, that's for ITS part replacements, primarily due to the life cycle replacement service life just running out, and we need to go ahead and start replacing a lot of the parts on the existing ITS system. The DOT insurance actually went down by $122,000. That's just we were able to get better rates from the state on our system insurance requirement.
We piggyback on that, and we got the benefit of riding on the contract.
That is correct. On the maintenance side, that is primarily the roadway facility maintenance services, our asset maintenance contract, non-routine improvements, ITS system maintenance, maintenance support services, and structural inspections. That budget increased overall by $628,000 from 6.7 to 7.3 million. The items that increased the highest there were the non-routine improvements, where we are putting what we're doing there is that we're doing more safety enhancement, delivering on our commitments. We're focusing on safety this year as well as last year, and we want to continue to do that and provide safety to our commuters. The other items increased are the roadway facility maintenance or asset maintenance contract, and that's just from the reprocurement, the increased rates, the increased cycles, and the additional assets that we're going to be bringing on as the Palmetto Section 5 project comes online and all the projects that we are completing. Those are the incremental increases. But overall, we've seen it's a very negligible increase when you look at the budget from last year to this year.
Go. Madam Chair.
I have a couple of questions. First, I want to thank Steve. Great presentation. I really love it when everybody knows their job so well, down to the detail, and unexpected questions. Really appreciate your work and your effort. So far, this presentation is amazing. Thank you so much, Marie, and everybody in the team that has been working so hard to put this together. My question to you, Toledo, is two-tier. Who is responsible for cleaning the debris on the side of the road during a construction or a production a job? Specifically, I want to know on the 112, because that's where I'm going.
The contract, during a construction project, we require the contractors to perform routine cleanup of the project sites.
Okay, the 112, whoever is working on that job, they really need to revisit that. Please, the debris that's on the side of the road is really disgusting. It should not occur because there's only cones, and the construction is way far from the area, but the debris is outrageous. Why? This is one of the main expressways that is the welcoming mat to the tourists and everybody that leaves that airport. It is vital that it be beautiful, finished quickly. It's sad that that is not happening. And two, how many times do we clean the roads on a monthly basis, based on this contract?
We have I have to ask my roadway manager on that one. 4 times a month.
4 times a month? That means on a weekly basis they go out?
Yes.
Wow. Should I translate what that wow means? That's
no,
sad if they go once a week. That's sad. Unacceptable cleaning. They need to do better. There is way too much. You know what? For this kind of money, we need better service. For this kind of money, we need better service.
Okay. I think it's been duly noted, Madam Chair. Mr. Cancio.
Mr. Toledo, I have a question. You know, in the roadway operation, you have $2.3 million for the road ranger. Yes. How many cars you have in the 24/7 per day thing? Because that is $6,300 per day. How many cars do we have in the 5 expressway?
Depending on the time of day,
yeah.
we have at least one vehicle patrolling 24 hours a day on every part of the system. So on all 5 roadways, you're always going to have at least one motorist assist vehicle during any time of the day. Typically, you'd have it's a wrecker, so that we're able to move cars out of the travel lanes. During peak hours, roadways like 836, 874, we increase the number of vehicles. So that number fluctuates between 7 to 10 vehicles on the entire system on a 24-hour basis.
And also this service contract is for how long? How you bid every year, or that is a 5 years?
This one was a 3-year or 5-year? This was a 3-year contract with renewals, and it was a fixed price over the 3 years. So the 2.3 is a contractual number that stays for the term of the contract. So it's 2.3 per year, and then there's a renewal. There's renewal options on that contract. Once we get to the end of the term, we'll go out and re-procure the contract again.
Thank you.
Mr. Concho, just for the record, I was very engaged in that contract because when I first got on this board, that was one of the ones that attracted my attention and had similar questions. Okay. Mr. Toledo, anybody? Continue, please.
So the next area is the administration of the operating budget, and that is broken up in components: salary, tax, and benefits, professional services, office administration, and treasury and bond administration. It's $11.6 million that we're proposing for the upcoming year. I wanted to bring this slide to everyone's attention. The proposed budget for 2016, excluding the litigation expense, about $1.3 million. It's not a recurring item, so if you subtract that out of the $11 million, it's $10.4 million that we're proposing for 2016. When we look back almost 10 years, a little over 10 years, our administration budget was $11.2 million. On a 10-year average, our administration budget was about $10.3, $10.4 million. So what the slide really shows is we've been pretty consistent over the last 10 years on managing our administration budget. And that's really mainly due to the fact that we really are a sort of a management organization where we have, we're not really heavy from an employee count perspective. We have professional services, and we're able to access those professionals when we need them. When particular strategies change, we're able to authorize a task authorization, very specific, on when we spend the money and when we don't. So we're not carrying a fixed cost on our overhead. So again, I think this is an important slide for the public's benefit about how we manage our administration budget.
Marie, I think it's an important point to make and to emphasize from board members. We had in our briefing a conversation about this. If you do take out that litigation, and we'll get into the litigation, hopefully we'll have breakdown, but we have a contingency for this litigation. This litigation is 2 at this point that we're anticipating, and I think it's this denotes the fact that we are a very lean organization and have been consistently lean. So for misinformation that may exist out there, this is a perfect chart to show that we have consistently been in a very good place.
Mr. Chairman, if I may piggyback on that, I think the importance also is that as we increase our revenue, now we're up to $153 million, then that 10.4 on a percentage-wise decreases because we're administering for the same amount, even though our income is increasing. And I think it augurs well, and I just want to put a plug in here for the system. In other words, for those that say that having an expressway authority such as MDX doesn't make any sense, here's proof that for the last 10 years we've been able to administer this at a relatively low cost, and that we have not increased administrative costs. On the contrary, on a percentage basis, it's decreased, and that this is an efficient system. And the reason I go out of my way to say this is because there are people in Tallahassee from our Dade delegation that have misused information and have not quoted accurate numbers and are accusing us of things that just simply are not true. And I will continue on this discussion when we get into the budget about increasing advertising, which I know you want to do. but I want to speak on this because the problem is that the people that are doing this know the truth, and they're not using the truth. So they're falsifying information. Advertising, I don't know that corrects it, and I just want to discuss that further, and I just wanted to make this comment now as a reference to what happens on that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie?
So on the salary tax and benefits, it's $6.1 million, and that includes all the benefits, all the salaries, merit adjustment, outside services and for the organization. So that's the total cost of our administration overhead staff, as well as our IT folks and the field guys out on the roadway. It went up $47,000. The administration budget on the professional services is $4.3 million, and I'm going to highlight some of the particular services. On the next slide, on the general year consultants, the total budget is $860,000, and what we're going to receive and what we're going to request from them is every few years we update the master plan. It also provides services for the general program management, work program development, and they're going to do some special services on traffic counts and some technology opportunities and some additional miscellaneous planning and support. This is the budget for the operating for the general year consultants. This is separate from the work program. Our financial and advisory services, these are two separate firms. The budget is $225. It did not increase, but this is the support for assisting us to help us reinvest our money, to fund our money on various investment opportunities. It's help us to finance update the financing plan, separate and apart from our bond transactions. And this is also support related to, we do annual credit rating surveillance with the 3 rating agencies. On the legal, we broke legal out into 2 separate sections. The legal budget is about $300,000. It went up about $105,000, and this is related to assisting us with bond and financial advice, non-debt transaction. Should we take over the MIC? And we were looking for how that impacts us from a trust indenture, the bonds and so forth, or tax issues. As well as procurement and contract support. If we need additional support on contract, we provided a budget for that, and any miscellaneous legal matters as well. These are all task-driven, so this is not an automatic $300 that it goes to the legal. This is just task-driven as we need it. And on the litigation side, we have 2 litigations. We have the ETC trial as well as the MCM litigation, and we've provided $1.3 budget for that. It's an increase of $300,000. And as the treasurer had mentioned earlier, we do have a contingency related to the litigation.
Maria, I want to make a point on that. Just to give some reference, this $1.3 million that we have to, make an allocation for every $1 million, a tenth of a point on our debt indenture and our requirement. So I just want to put that in perspective. So, we could have a higher requirement if we didn't have this litigation. So every time we get into a litigation, understands that it impacts our bottom line. Yep. And I think it's a very significant point. Obviously, we wish we're in no litigation, but also the consequences of litigation really impact our ability to do more for this community.
Mr. Chairman, and the point also is that if we win the litigation, then that figure goes away because then the loser pays for our legal fees.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Come. Okay.
So the other item, I'm sorry.
I think you have counsel who has a question.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Cantu.
In one of the previous slides, and yesterday I have a meeting with Marie and the director, and it was very good for me. But in the administration, how many people do we have in these $6.3 million bucks?
We have 46 employees, 44 employees, I believe it is.
As compared to how much a couple of years ago?
When I started at MDX, there was 44, 45 employees.
I think that's an important point. 10 years ago or 8 years ago, we had 44. Now we have 46.
I think every year we do an evaluation with the executive director's mandate that we look at our professional services on what we should take in-house to carry a fixed cost on our overhead or what should be outsourced. So I think that analysis is done on a year basis. Going back to the professional services slide, the other 2 items we're going to talk about is information technology as well as public communications, which Mario is going to address in a moment. So on the IT support, it's about $150,000, and this is an additional request of $100,000, and this is to support some of the changes that we're going to be doing on the website, the refacing of the website and the back end on the hardware, and some other things that we need to do with the customer rewards program on the databases. So we're requesting an additional $100,000 for IT to support us on those initiatives. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mario to talk about the public communications budget.
Good morning, board members. In the past, the focus of the communications plans were to complete the existing projects and also the ORT conversion that was happening on 836 and 112. This current plan moves us forward into a more proactive approach within the community, focusing on a grassroots approach as we've done in the past couple of years. The plan primarily would create a comprehensive and multicultural public outreach and educational campaign to educate the public on MDX's transparency and accountability. The 4 principal messages that we would be discussing within that campaign would be our work program and the partnerships we have with the various agencies locally, such as the partnership the board took with Miami-Dade Transit and FDOT just recently. General facts and contributions to clarify who MDX is, where we've come from, what we use the money for, and all the various accountability measures that we have. The safety initiatives that the board has really pushed forward with Juan on our roadways and how important that is, that in some instances you don't see that throughout the state at all. And the MDX Advantage program that the board created recently. This would be taken upon basically in a 3-prong approach, one through mass media, primarily though through direct customer interaction, and also with a grassroots community interaction. Various events with local partnerships with local officials, other community events that are held throughout the year throughout the county, and also creating and developing a presentation that we can then take to the homeowners association, other commerce associations, and civic groups that have engaged with us in the past. Recently, though, it is my understanding, based on various comments from the board at committee meetings and at briefings, that the board may be looking at various other enhancements that we can do to further expand that outreach throughout the entire community. The plan is scalable, and we can increase any portions that the board feel are more appropriate to do at this time.
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. I ask every board member to consider what I'm going to say, and this is very important. What we've done in the past, and keeping this budget as it is today, has done nothing to inform and educate this community of what MDX does with the toll dollars that it collects. It has done nothing. It has hit deaf ears. Okay? People do not know where and what projects we're doing and where the money is going and how it's being spent. You know why? Because this budget is too low to be able to buy general market media, Hispanic media, and everything else under the sun to address this very big community. We need to tell the public, we need to show our accountability, our transparency of what we're doing with the toll dollars, what projects they have bought into, and what we're rolling out. And the only way to do it is to spend more money in this area to be able to get that message out. Whatever has been done in the last year, obviously, is not enough. Obviously, is not good enough. It needs to be better. We have a good team of professionals on board. We need to maximize their use. This is diddly squat. It may sound like a lot of money, guys, but it's diddly squat when you compare that your work program is over $700 million. And all I'm saying is we need to start at a baseline of nothing less than 2.5. Nothing less than 2.5. We either do it or close the door, because you need to put the information out. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be every day. Your job has to include 3 press releases on a weekly basis of what is happening. People have to puke what is happening with this money, what we are collecting and what we're doing. They have to know it. Some of us, I included, don't even know half of the projects that we're doing. Why? Because we're not doing a good enough job of promoting it, of communicating it, of putting it out. And the only way to do it is to go back and spend more money and doing it right, and using the professionals that we have on board. If we don't use, we're wasting. So right now, this money that we have here is dumb. It's absolutely dumb. Why? Because it's wasting money. We need to spend it correctly to better educate and be more accountable to the public. I hear the outcry. They don't like the tolls. Neither do I. But what is it buying? What are we paying? What are we using it for? If we're not telling them, for sure they're going to keep crying. For sure the delegation is going to go up there and say whatever they want. Let them say whatever they want. We're all volunteers, guys, but let's do something right. Let's spend more money here, because it is not spending. It's putting it out because the public deserves to know. You will be blamed if you don't let them know what it is that we do with their money. So we need to do it, and we need to start immediately. And it needs to be in all languages. And it needs to be clear and concise. I want to see it every day. I want to hear it every day. There are so many projects, so many great things that this agency does. And you know who knows? God. You guys know. Everybody in this room knows. You know what? It's not for us. It's the community. So I'm saying, board members, it needs to go to 2.5. And this should be the beginning, that it should never drop down from 2.5. I don't know how to do the math, but if you do the math, it's not even 1% of the work program if we go to 2.5. Not even 1%. It's probably increments.
Less than 0.5%.
So, Marie, can we increase to 2.5?
We do have the ability to do so. For every additional million that we spend, the coverage ratios are 174. Our policy indicates no less than 150. The rating agencies and bondholders are expecting somewhere around 170. So we do have some room there.
So
do it.
Repeat that again, I think for every million, there's a tenth, and we've given ourselves a significant cushion. Our requirements at 1.5. We're at 1.74 right now. So
the policy is no less than 1.5. Okay. We're presenting a budget to you today that is a 1.74. Our discussion with the rating agencies and investors and what our projections are right around 170. Again, we're presenting a budget of 174, so we have a little bit of room there. So should you want to increase the budget for $1 million that you spend, you would get down to 1.73 for additional $1 million, $2 million, roughly about 172. So we're still above that 170. I think is where our target is.
Thank you, Mr. Frey.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, I'm probably going to be voting with you, but I think it's important that we have a debate about this. So I'm being the devil's advocate now, and I've got three stories that I want to tell you. And Mr. Chairman, I know the hour is late, but I ask for your indulgence on this. The first one is the $3,000 palm tree. Now, the way we operate is by state law. We have to spend a certain amount of money on landscaping. We're within that, and we do that well. And I'm proud of the work that we do. So it's bid. There's a successful bidder. That landscape provider puts in an African palm tree that costs $3,000. It's within the budget. It's reasonable. The state does that, and I'm sorry that Gus has left for a moment, but the state puts those same palm trees in by the hundreds, and nobody says anything. But our palm tree, that's the battering ram. So when you have an enemy that wants to degrade you and not tell the truth, it doesn't matter how much you advertise, they're going to pick the one area that sounds like a scandal, and they say, yeah, but the $3,000 palm tree. So every time I go out on a radio talk show or debate, yeah, but the $3,000 palm tree. And I don't know how to answer it. So the point number one is, we have to beware, because, in my opinion, $2.5 million is nowhere near enough. I think what we should really have is $3, $4, $5 million, but we don't have that kind of money. So that's point number one. Point number two is my good friend Pepe Cancio. Pepe Cancio is an intelligent man who is well-versed, understands this community better than most people, listens to the radio because his daughter is on television, on radio all the time, and she's wonderful. And so he's always listening, and he's always aware of what's going on. He came on this board, and some of the things that he said on his first meeting indicated to me that he didn't really understand some of the things that were going on in MDX. Now, I'm not saying this is criticism. I'm just saying here's an intelligent, well-intentioned, well-informed man who doesn't know, and now he's on our board, and he's getting educated, and it's wonderful. But if Pepe Cancio has misinformation, imagine what the average Joe has. And the question is, can you really, by putting another $1 million on radio and TV, educate the general public? Because it is my considered opinion that in the debate of tolls, we're never going to win that. In other words, nobody is ever going to say, yes, we want tolls. Yes, we understand that we are improving roads. Yes, we understand that there's no other way of doing it. Yes, we understand that there's no federal money available. Yes, we understand that the state of Florida spends 3/4 of the money that the state of Florida spends is our state money, not federal money. Only 25% comes from the federal government, one of the lowest in the United States. People don't understand that, and you explain it, and you go on debates, and they don't accept it. So that's point number two. And if you let me finish this, the third point is that I want to refer to as Jeb Bush, and I think Jeb Bush was a good governor, and I think he would be a great president, and I think he's a formidable, and I'm a Democrat, but I think Jeb Bush would be a formidable candidate and a formidable president. 3 days ago, he made a mistake, and he said something that is unfortunate. He says he misunderstood the question, then he had to backtrack. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has already sent me 20 mailograms in my phone about hitting Jeb Bush and the Democratic Party. So whenever there's something that's not quite clear, people will take that thread and they'll just pull the hell out of it, because that's the weak point and that's what they're going to do. And no matter how much we advertise and no matter how much we spend on improving our image, the fact is that once somebody starts pulling on that thread, especially if it's a weak point, it's very difficult to defend it. So here to conclude. Here's the alternative that I would put out to you. I think we've got to do something, and I will be coming back with an idea, a project that is a populist project. Now, you know that we have a mayor's campaign coming up next year. We have a mayor that's on the defensive now. We have a county commission with a new leadership. The chairman and the transportation chairman are strongly against buses. They want trains. Now, I don't know how that's going to work out. I know that a train, any train, small train, costs 10 times more than bus rapid transit. All of a sudden, there's an awakening of bus rapid transit. I'm not saying that we have to go into the transit business, because I don't think we can and we should. But I think we could help. We've been good partners with the state. We've been good partners with Miami-Dade County. Some of these commissioners in the west part of the county are desperate for some kind of a transportation system. Jose Pepe Diaz wants to have this bus rapid transit going to the airport. Carlos Zapata is anxious. I think that we should take on a project, which a small project, a demonstration project, and we can't do it alone. It has to be with the state, with state money. We've been giving an awful lot of money to the state of Florida over the last years, and it's time maybe for the state to give some of that money back. I think we need to do a project that would be a populist type of a project that I think would give us a lot of impetus. That's not to say that I'm against what you're saying. I'm just saying that we also need to do a proactive thing that solves problems for people who have transportation needs in Miami-Dade County. Thank you for your...
We're both saying the same thing. It's just a matter of how you get there. I mean, we need the funding to be able to make things happen. So I think you're kind of saying the same thing. Mr. Constance and then Mr. Myers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the beginning,
Okay, one second, Mr. Vasquez. Go ahead, Mr. Constance.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, because at the beginning you were saying that I was a smart guy.
You are.
But let me tell you something. Beside the people that are here in this room today, how many people, because I knew, the first day I came here when I talked with the director, Central Boulevard, that the MDX have been spending.
That's my point.
But, and the MIC.
Yep.
That means that, you have to advertise what you are doing. That is a very simple. Some sign. You don't have to spend, millions of dollars. The people need to know what we are doing here. That's why I'm here. I am learning, but sometimes I talk with the people outside of here. I said, do you know that the entrance of the airport was with the money that you have been paid in your toll?
How about 826, 836, that intersection?
That means that, we have to advertise more with some sign, or maybe going to the people, or go to the radio, some of the speakers of this organization. But it's something that not many people know what you have been doing for 10 years here. And that's why, you receive some criticism.
Yep.
The toll have been going up, but, we need to know how we are doing here.
Mr. Myers, Mr. Vasquez, Mr. Walters, and Ms. Weinberg, you have a question?
Yeah, isn't there a requirement? I mean, projects, I see some of the FDOT signs on projects. Cities, I know we always had to put up signs when there were development projects going on. I don't know, do we not? Because that's a great idea.
Yeah, the signs are up on the 826, 836. Signs will go up now when we reconstruct 836. And I think the comment that Board Member Cancio makes is that we should have some kind of positive recognition to projects that we've participated in. Okay, and we agree with that, and we're working on how to do that for Central Boulevard.
And I think the point of this workshop is to discuss these ideas to make sure that we all have sentiment about increasing our communications, but more importantly, since this is a budget workshop, is how we're going to pay for it. So, Mr. Myers.
So when we talk about communications, I know that I am MDC, right? I know that FIU is worlds ahead. I know that my FPL bill is going to drop $1. Whoop-de-doo, but it's going to drop $1. And I know all those things because the day and age of communication is changing so rapidly. And I'm a proponent of signs, but that's a component of an overall communications plan. So for me, I'm in support of increasing this budget. But with that, I think we need to develop a comprehensive strategic blueprint for our message moving forward, and not for 2016, not for 2017, but till 2020 and beyond. What is our message? And again, just like I am MDC and FIU's worlds ahead, and I'm going to reduce my FPL bill by $1, what is MDX? And I think we need to spend some time and have the experts that we have on board, or go out and find those experts that are going to tell us as a board so that we can make those conscientious decisions of how we're going to be represented in the community. Thank you.
I think to your point, we have a committee today, I think at 11:30, 12 o'clock, whatever times are all combined, that will have an opportunity for all board members to stay. Mr. Vasquez, Mr. Walters, and then Ms. Weinberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been patiently just listening, and it's no secret that this is a very, very important issue for me. First, to the chairwoman's suggested amount, I don't know if it's based on feedback from our contractor, our public relations firm, and I think it's a good point to think about whether I am going to be a big supporter of an increase. My question is also along the lines of, do we know that gets us to where we want to go? Do we know if that is enough? Number two, my second point regarding the mayor's comment as to the toll debate and how that's not going to change. That should not be our driver. Tolls will never be popular, but MDX can certainly become a lot more popular than what we are today. If something we are is proven, and we are so proven that we are now seeing items on our agenda, like we saw operations yesterday, where the county's asking us to take the lead on something because we are the best agency to carry out those kinds of jobs. So that's the message that we're proven that we've delivered on every dollar that we collected. And I can't begin to say enough how much I will be the supporter of a significant increase, but I would like to know and get perhaps a little more feedback from our contractor on what number gets us there. And I will repeat something I said yesterday. I will take all the flack that anybody wants to give us about doing this, as opposed to the flack that we take and the beating that we take in the other arenas that we're all too familiar with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walters?
Yes, I would like to agree with the chairwoman. As a matter of fact, before this meeting started, I asked Mr. Toledo if he could brief me on all the ongoing projects, because I drive around and I'm thinking, gee, I wonder what's going on there. You know, and I think I should know this stuff. But my other point is, I think it's just as important not only to get the message out about what this board does, what this organization does, but what we don't do. I can't tell you the limited time I've been around this board now, the number of people that have talked to me about the Rickenbacker Causeway, the Florida Turnpike, Broad Causeway, Venetian Causeway. And I think there needs to be a better understanding of the community of exactly who we are and what we do.
I think in the past, and some of you have been here longer, we've been very reluctant to control our budgeting so we're not accused of spending that money. I think, unfortunately, that conservative attitude has gotten to this point that if we should have been spending more money year over year over year, we may have had a better chance of communicating. So now, in my opinion, I think the consensus of the board is that we have to do it now because of the problems and the situation that we're in. And I look at our elected officials and the political aspect as a motivator. They're really motivating us and giving us the platform to do more, better, and they're justifying what we need to do today. So, Ms. Weinberg, you had some comments.
Yeah, we also get blamed for the I-95 stress lanes. At least I do in my part of town in the north. But to your point, AJ, we actually did have a presentation last year for our committee that's coming up next. I wasn't crazy exactly about what was presented, and we sort of went back and forth. And so we're on that path of launching a major campaign. And yes, we have to come up with the dollars to do it. But don't discount this grassroots. I love seeing the increased participation in chambers and homeowners associations. I joined Aventura Hospital years ago as PR director with zero marketing dollars, with a task to change the public's perception that Aventura Hospital is where you went to die. And I was able to do it because of this community, attending all those meetings, making a physician lecture series where I open with just information about the hospital. In fact, and I was very successful in doing that. Just 2 Fridays ago, I was moderating the South Florida Hispanic Chamber Healthcare Expo luncheon with 5 physicians, one of whom was a neurosurgeon, who went off on me at the beginning of, before the panel started, about the horrors of MDX and what evil people we are. So I don't ever miss an opportunity to talk about not tolling, Maurice, because we're never going to change the public's perception about tolling in general, but what a great agency MDX is. And I spent 5 minutes educating this neurosurgeon, very smart neurosurgeon, and all the horrors, the misinformation he had about MDX, and I won him over. So we as board members also have a responsibility every chance we get to promote the agency and the work that we do. And I am loving seeing increased participation. And I know, Amar, you're doing a great job out there as
Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I think in the interest of time, since it's now 11:35, I'd like to second the motion to increase our budget to $2.5 million.
Is it at this committee that we do that, or is that the Budget and Finance Committee? I think today is this. Okay. Okay, I think this is a discussion, for public input, for everybody participation.
But I think it's important that we show a consensus here. So I would second the motion that we increase our budget to $2.5 million.
Is that your motion? I just want to make sure because I was unclear. Your motion is that we increase our budget allocation an additional 2 or 2.5?
2.5.
Up to 2.5.
Up to 2.5. Mr. Counsel?
Yeah, I think the appropriate meeting would be the next meeting, the Budget and Finance.
Yeah, if I may, to I guess, close this up, and I think 3 of the board members here, I think Gus as well, Secretary Pago, have been here and we've seen the cycles. Mm-hmm. There was a time at MDX that our communications program was a proactive program that tried to achieve a lot of what I hear today. We got heavily criticized for expenditures. And we reacted, and the reaction was to go back and do more grassroots. I agree in speaking with a lot of the board members that we need to take a proactive role again, and I am in agreement that I would prefer to get criticized for that, trying to educate and inform the community of what we're doing. See, unlike educating on open road tolling, technology, we're going to close the system to get everybody to pay, which was the previous campaigns. This right now is about a $700, $800 million program that improves mobility in Miami-Dade County, that moves us forward. This is a much easier conversation because tolling, which is just a means to an end, like I've always said, Secretary Pago, you don't go out saying that you're the Secretary of the Department of Gasoline Taxes. You're the Department of Transportation. We're a transportation provider. This is a simpler message to communicate. Are people ever going to like taxes or tolls? No, they're not. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be proactive in getting our message out. So I'm in complete agreement in looking at increasing the budget, in conversing with board members. We know that we've got the capacity. So what we would like to do is come back to you with a comprehensive plan. At a communications committee, let our experts do it. Let them pitch us what the right thing is, and hopefully we can work it within that budget. And if it's more than that budget, there's always an opportunity throughout the year to do a budget amendment. That's what this board, this governing board has the authority to do. So that's the way I think I would approach this.
Okay. Mario, anything else from you? Any questions, Mario, before we get to Mr. Escobar? Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I thought I was supposed to immediately follow Mario, and I felt that his request was so important that I kind of tied it into my presentation as well. And I'm not a good person at doing bullets and slides, and that I'm old school, so I'm going to go off the reservation here.
As long as it's a quick going off the reservation.
Yep, it is. Following up on Mario's presentation, I agree that as these projects move forward to the construction phase, we have to do a much better job of putting together a strategic advertising and promotional campaign to inform and educate the customer with clear and concise facts on why we selected these infrastructure projects that we did select, how these specific infrastructure projects will improve our customers' quality of life and actually save them money, how these infrastructure projects to reduce congestion on our county's most important expressways benefit them, whether they use our expressways or not, by improving business productivity and efficiency, since our economy is heavily dependent on the movement of international freight to and from our airport, our seaport, as well as getting business visitors and tourists to their destination safely, how these projects are probably the most important infrastructure projects in recent memory in terms of Miami-Dade County's future economy and prosperity, and why, once these improvements are completed, they will actually realize that the value of the price they pay daily to use our system will feel like a bargain compared to the alternatives. The budgetary investment in defining our agency and what we are doing is as important as the expenditure on the actual project. We have to define ourselves and our mission vis-a-vis the needs of this community. The campaign has to be waged on two fronts. We have to invest in professionally produced paid advertisements. And when I said earlier we must inform and educate the community, I define the community to include the paying customer who actually utilizes the system, the general public, since public perception is extremely important, the press, both English and Spanish, including television, radio, and all print mediums, but also the state and local business and political leadership. We must strengthen relationships on all these levels and establish stronger alliances. While there is a lot of noise and political rhetoric out there, because our agency is prospering and we do keep our promises to the community, again, let me repeat, we do keep our promises to our community and fulfill our mission efficiently and effectively, as many of you have said, we must identify common ground to work with the community, including the political, business, media, and the general community. We are a victim of our success. Because of our success, we have evolved beyond an expressway authority and are now a public transportation infrastructure agency. And the expectations of what we can deliver are at an all-time high. And yet, the reality of what this infrastructure actually costs are unrealistic. We must bridge needs, expectations, and reality through our message. And that was, it would have tied a little bit better if I would have followed up with Mario.
Any question? Okay.
Thank him. He summed it up. He summed it up in why we need to do it. At the end of the day, it's correct. 2.5 should be a park number at this time. Giving the task to our experts that have been retained, and then having them come back to us with a comprehensive plan that may include a little bit more, because we don't know how expensive things are. But mind you, the plan needs to be very distinct. We need to continue with the grassroots approach. It should not be dropped. In addition, the new monies need to be implemented in a different approach to get the message out. So it's not dwindling this down to do more of the other, is doing both. These two tracks need to be maintained. Thank you so much.
I think, again, this workshop is intended to air our concerns, and then do the formalities, and I think there's a overwhelming general consensus that there is a great need out there, and then we just need to, as policy shapers and makers here, we need to put our money where our mouth is in this case, and that really comes at this kind of blended meeting here. Thank you. Marie?
Okay, I don't know if you want this lightning or just fast.
Yeah,
okay.
This is a very important part of it, but probably for those of you who want additional information, can meet with Marie and get additional information.
Absolutely.
Do the lightning.
I do want to I'm just going to go through the rest of the administration slides quickly. It went down $31,000, but I do want to highlight it does support the small local business program that we do every year, and Helen's group offers 12 free courses to the community for technical as well as administrative. So that is a service that we provide to the business community at a free charge. I believe you do that at Miami-Dade and FIU, Helen? Yes. Thank you. The administration, bond administration is a little bit under $100,000, and this is really for our fee for rating agencies and trustee fees. Earlier we alluded to we have a contingency. We have a standard contingency of $250,000 under the discretion of the executive director with the authorization of the CFO, and then we have a set aside for about $400,000 for our litigation expense, should we need it. So this, again, these are not amounts that we expect to spend, but should we need to, the funding is available to do so.
We're being prudent here and making sure that since you can't control litigation and how long that it goes and other areas like a standard contingency. So we're being prudent and making sure we have adequate reserves.
Correct. Moving along here, I'm going to talk about debt repayment. Obviously, we all know that we issue revenue bonds for the purpose of funding our work program. For the upcoming fiscal year, we have $86.2 million of principal and interest payments. These are revenue bonds, senior lien. We also have the subordinate debt of $6.1 million. These are all the state loans. These are secondary liens. We're going to be having a conversation of Budget and Finance about how to defease the state loans.
And just for the record, this is really our responsibility to take care of our debt.
That is correct. We've already contractually obligated those amounts. Non-project capital, the majority of non-project capital relates to our IT department, and they're requesting an additional $240,000, and this is really for servers, IT infrastructure, upgrades, and things of that nature. I don't know if anybody wants to have any discussion about that, but this is, again, really mainly related to ITS and the headquarters office. I want to spend a little bit of time on revenue. Our overall revenue is it's projected at 208. Last year it was projected at 183. Our toll revenue, we're projecting at 202.5 million, as well as fees of 3.5, investment income 1.6, and lease revenue. Lease revenue is the excess parcels that we actually talked about yesterday at the Operations Committee. Let me spend a little bit of time on the toll revenue itself. We've had a discussion with Steve about the transactions and about revenue. He indicated that about 85% comes from SunPass. That's on a transaction basis. This is on a revenue basis. So on a revenue basis, we are seeing about 77.5%, 78% comes from our SunPass customers. And the remaining 22% of revenue is coming from our toll by plate customers. So year over year, we have experienced growth on the expressway system. 60% of our revenue is coming from 836. What's 60%? That's about $120 million. When we stood before this board in 2013, our revenue base for 836 was roughly around $60 million. So when we basically set our toll rates, we basically said it was about $55 million for closing the system. So with the growth in traffic year over year, we have not lost any traffic growth whatsoever. 836 traffic was roughly around $63 million. So the differential, you have about $57 million of additional revenue that we're projecting from closing the system. And once you take the additional SunPass costs, about 9 cents per transaction, and the toll by plate cost, you get to, we basically said 53, we're at that $55 million range. So this is based upon projection and an accrual base on what we think we're going to earn. That's not necessarily what we're going to collect.
I want to make a point, Mr. Chairman, one second. I want to make a point. You said we have not had a decrease.
We have not had a decrease. That's correct.
I think that there may be a conversation out there, erroneous as it may, that we have had a decrease once we close the system. And you're saying the numbers, there's statistical empirical data that says we've quite the opposite. We've had an increase.
We've had year over year, we've had an increase, and I'm going to show a slide a little bit later on fiscal 15. I think Mayor Ferre has asked the question a couple of times, and I know Ed Reagan is going to be presenting at the next board meeting, but I did want to look at transactions more. So this is from a revenue perspective.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I may. Yeah, I think it's important that we get those figures from Ed Reagan, and I'm anxiously awaiting them because I keep hearing the same thing over and over again. And they keep repeating, because of the increased tolls, we have less people using 826, and that's just not so. Now, I also like to point out, Mr. Chairman, that on toll revenues of $202.5 million, 60% is from just one road, 826, and our second road is 874, and it's only 17%. So by far, much more than half, 60% of our revenue comes from one road, and that's how important 826 is to us.
And that is why our work program focuses.
836.
36.
And that is why
826 is going to be very important.
I misspoke. 836.
So this is the perspective from revenue and as well as from transactions. Fiscal year 15, we're projecting 354 million transactions. Next year, about 452 transactions. The 2015 revenue is 167, but that's based upon projections. And I just want to clarify my point. The transactions are actually transactions that occur in that particular fiscal year. The revenue doesn't necessarily recognize in that particular fiscal year, because when someone uses SunPass and they go through a gantry, we recognize the revenue at that point in time. But toll by plate has a little bit more of a lag. It has to go through a process, as Steve explained, that it goes through an image review process. They go to DMV to get an address. It comes back. Do we send it back to SunPass? Is it a SunPass customer? If it's not, then it goes to toll by plate and goes to billing. So the revenue recognition is when we issue a bill. When we get to that point is when we recognize the revenue.
We carry it on our books, and by the time we actually collect it, there's a lag time.
We recognize it at the point that we issue you a bill. That's when it hits our financial statements. Mayor Frey, I just wanted to bring your attention to this slide. This is fiscal year 15. This is the current year. And to answer your question from a high-level perspective, the orange is the forecast. The gray is the actual. These are transactions traffic-wise. And we closed the system in November of 14. So you can see a big jump up in actual. And then you start factoring in. We brought on some expressways a little bit later, some of the gantries a little bit later than we projected. The projection factored in somewhere around a 3 to 4% of diversion of the system. And if you can take a look at the line, we've outperformed the forecast. So the system has performed better than what we actually have projected into our forecast. So I don't know if I'm going to go back to the other slide. If anybody wants to have any other questions on revenue. No question. Yes, sir. So that's what makes up the revenue itself. On the reserves, we have two reserve items. We have the reserves based upon our policy, and then we have a renewal replacement deposit. And this year is the first year that we're doing a deposit and renewal replacement for the purpose of system improvements. It's $42 million, and this is the pay-as-you-go or cash portion of our financing plan, which the board approved back in June of 2014. So the generator consultant, based upon the mix of the requirements of what's going to be spent next year between bond proceeds and cash funded, it's a 60-40 split. So $42 million is going to the R&R to ensure that we were able to fund the work program. So let me spend a little bit of time on the coverage ratio. Obviously, this is the heart of the matter. We have projected revenues of $208 million. Our operating expenses, $58 million. We get to net revenue of $150 million. Senior debt, $86 million. And then your subordinate debt. So all-in debt is $92 million. So when you look at your senior debt, we are projecting a senior debt coverage of 174. That number will change to about a 172.5, 173, based upon suggestions of this board. And then our all-in coverage, which includes the R&R deposits pay-as-you-go, is 1.11. So we're well above our compliance obligation. We are well above our benchmarks for the Florida Transportation Commission. So this is the budget we're presenting before you today.
Okay. Are there any burning questions that anybody needs to ask? I want to move forward to the actual budget and finance workshop, and this is, a committee meeting, and this has been a public workshop. So if anybody has any questions for Marie.
An amazing document presented before us, the complete version and the abbreviated version. Your team, fabulous. We know where all the pennies are, and that's extremely important.
Good. Thank you.
And thank you, Madam Chair. But I do want to also recognize everybody who put this together, a lot of work. And I also encourage our board members to, should they have any more questions, they're always available for it to be answered. So this is not a conclusive, finite process. Anytime board members need any explanations, staff, as you've been hearing, are more than capable, and that's why we put so much trust in them. So with that said, that should conclude. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, everyone, for their presentation. That's going to conclude our public workshop. We're now going to officially start. Go ahead.
Can we have a 2-minute break, if we could?
Minute break.
Is that for you particularly or for everybody?
I just want to make sure we're prepared to respond to your questions.
So why don't we...
And there is lunch. I don't know if Mr. Vasquez is on the phone, but we did order lunch specially for Mr. Vasquez because he did bring that to our attention yesterday.
We'll do
You mean to tell me we got more than cookies today?
A 2-minute break, but honestly, I'm very cognizant of everybody's time here. I know we've gone above and beyond, but this is part of the commitment, and it's always about the budget, and we're setting policy here, and the budget is critical. So I ask you that you indulge us in our time, and those of you who can stay, please stay. Thank you, and we'll be back in 2 minutes to convene our Public Budget and Finance Committee.